The Plotcast Podcast with the Potty Plotters.
Hello and welcome back to the Potty Plotters Plotcast podcast. This is season 2, episode 34, and I am Julia.
That's amazing that you've actually got that right, Julia, isn't it? Thank goodness we wrote that bit down. Anyway, yeah.
Who are you?
You know, that was the best introduction, really, that we've done in a long time, isn't it? Because generally, Gareth sort of gives us the red light and off we go.
Yeah, but you've not
me.
introduced yourself.
I'm Elaine, yes.
Yeah, just in case people don't know you, describe yourself.
Buoyant.
Tall?
Yes.
Blonde.
No.
Natural.
And that's enough there. Right then. Has Gareth got a speaking part or shall we do it?
You do it.
Oh, come on,
not
you do
doing
it.
it.
No,
I always
you
get
said
it wrong.
now. You put yourself forward.
No,
Come on.
I never. I asked the question, Gareth.
I think if the listeners were to listen back, they'll find out that you actually just volunteered.
Oh, I do not.
And even if she didn't, I can make it sound like she did.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Gareth. Do it
Ninja.
then. Yeah.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay. If you've got any questions, you can get in touch via our social media channels. That's Facebook, Instagram and X at Potty Plotters. We're on TikTok at The Potty Plotters. You can email naughtycorner at pottyplotters.uk or check out the website, pottyplotters.uk. And if you're enjoying this, can you start to put this back in the script,
That's
please?
amazing, yeah.
Because I have to try and do this
you've
from
got
memory.
memory. Yeah, that's good.
Memory of a sieve.
Kofi, thingy, thing.
If you'd like to support us to keep us going and to allow us to turn the heating on because it's really cold,
Perishing.
then you can leave us a tip at kofi.com/thepottyplotters. That's ko-fi.com/thepottyplotters. And we will put the heating on. Now, where are we going to put the burner?
We've had a nice week, in fairness, haven't we?
Yeah,
it's
we
only
have.
now that it's starting to cool down till end of September. It's
Yeah.
not a bad time,
No,
is it, really?
No, although we have had an appalling year, so I was kind of hoping it might last a little longer.
Yeah, I think so.
I've had the heating service,
Yeah.
so it's ready to go on.
Yeah, it's definitely been the shortest season ever, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Plotcast Podcast with the Potty Plotters.
And a lot of miserable people about.
Yeah, but we're not
So we need to
miserable.
cheer them up.
No,
Yeah.
because we've had an email in, Elaine. Yes, we've had an email from Alix.
So somebody's actually learned how to use our email system.
It's amazing,
we love
isn't
it. If you're listening, send us messages. It doesn't matter what you say. We'll read them.
There's a challenge.
If you're sending us pictures, think very carefully about how you're titling them, though, please.
Make sure they're safe for work
Yes,
and
yes.
potters.
Yes.
So we've had a message in from Alix in Bristol.
Oh, do we need to put the accent on?
Oh, I can't do that.
I think they're like that.
Well, you
aren't
can
they?
do it then. I
No,
can't
you
No,
do
that's
that.
I don't think that's quite
That's
Bristol.
rude anyway, isn't it?
Is that...
Alex might not talk like that.
No.
Alex might be an import into Bristol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alex might be from like London or somewhere.
Oh, London.
London.
London
No, they don't talk like that in London
Don't
either.
they?
No.
They
no.
talk plants, don't they?
Yes,
No.
they talk dahlias.
Anyway, what?
What?
What's Alex say?
Alex says, I have been listening to your podcast for a bit less than a week and I'm already 28 episodes in.
Binge listening.
I love it. 28. I couldn't listen to us for that length of time, Elaine.
Gareth has to.
No. I've
And you do it bit by bit. I don't do all of them in one go.
I've recently
Silent would
started
be calling.
growing in pots on my small patio garden. I'm wondering what your views are on fabric pots and air pruning. Are some plants more suited to it than others, e.g. fig and blueberry, and would it keep the soil too dry for thirsty plants? P.S. Sorry if this was already covered in an episode. I'm about a season and a half
So
behind.
hold on. Season 1, episode 28. Ooh.
Right,
Got a long time to go.
Well, the good
Got a
news
lot of
is...
time on our hands.
Yeah, well, the good news is we seem to get better as we go along.
Yeah, so this is episode 34 of season 2. So, I mean,
we've
we'll be
just
brilliant by now.
Yeah, we've just about got the hang of it, haven't we, Elaine?
It has taken a while.
Yeah.
Can you grow figs in this country?
Yeah.
There's one on my plot there, look.
On my plot over there.
Okay.
Do you like figs?
No,
Well,
he's shaking his head. No.
I'm not shaking my head. I was asking the boss.
Yeah, she's here today, you know.
Anyway, you, Elaine?
I've not actually tried cooking them, like doing figs and like you do. You see,
can have them raw.
I know you can, but you can cook them like they split open. You do them like with honey and stuff.
Yeah, and Parma ham.
Oh, hang on a minute now.
No.
Oh, hello, she's reaching down.
Oh, my word.
Squeaky chair's back again.
Yeah, here we go. We're back in headquarters, as you can tell.
Is this where we're going to be based during the winter?
Oh, my word. Yes, I think so, Gareth. If we see the winter at this rate.
Now, this isn't pears, but this isn't...
This isn't pears.
No, this isn't...
They are.
No, this isn't
They
figs.
look like a right pear.
There's a right juicy pear there for you, Gareth.
A pair of pears. What's a
Pair
pair
of
of pears called?
What's that crawling all over it?
Nothing. What is
What are you on
it?
about?
It's a spider mite.
Oh, you've given me an infected pear.
No, I've not. It was just walking all over it. There you go.
But what is a
Shall I
pair
stop
of
holding them
pears
like
got?
that?
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Yeah.
They're massive, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's a massive pear.
I've had a good crop of pears this year, Elaine. I really have had a good... In fact, I've fed off the site with the pears
Yeah,
this
they're very
year.
good,
They're
Julia.
massive, aren't they?
Yeah.
So what should I do with these?
Poach them.
Yeah,
In?
I would say.
Everybody I've given them to, they've said, I'll poach that in red wine.
Well,
That's
I
what
would
they've
do it
said.
in white as
Oh,
well.
would you?
Yeah, we don't like red wine.
Oh,
Yeah,
white
if you've
wine.
got some white wine, you can do it in sweetened water, actually. So a couple of tablespoons of just granulated sugar into enough water to cover them. Now, in order to cover these, because they're whopping, what
Need
you
a big
need
saucepan.
to do, yeah, or cut them in half, because otherwise they're going to take a long time to poach. Cut them in half and take out the seeds, etc., the core in the middle, and just lie them, and then just make sure that you turn them so that they can
Gotta peel
cook
them.
evenly. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely blooming lovely. Or
What would I serve them
you
with?
could do is, I would serve them with ice cream, clotted cream, both if necessary.
Oh, we did them with
and
the
a bit
coulis,
of a
didn't we?
blueberry,
Oh,
blueberry or black currant coulis. That would be nice. Or some stewed fruit if you've got any. But I tell you what, as well. Crumble, that's the word I was
no.
thinking of.
Honestly,
pear crumble.
pear crumble
It's
is the best.
absolutely gorgeous.
It really is.
Get him another one out of there so then he can make a crumble. Honestly, Gareth,
No, I think
it's
what we're
the
going to
best
do.
ever.
So this is now dessert today, by the way.
Oh, that's it then.
So we'll
We
try
say
it.
pudding this side of the table, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Pudding.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can have dessert.
Dessert.
Yeah, I think
It's my
that
just dessert.
they will probably only take you about 20 minutes to poach, but
Okay.
they're worth it.
Yeah. Important thing to mention, Gareth, is that pears,
Yeah.
these are quite hard. Now, you pick pears when they're hard. You don't pick them when they're soft because they've gone over then on the tree. So if anyone listening has got a pear tree, as long as you touch the pear and it comes off in your hand, that is ripe. It's
A ripe pear.
Sorry.
Yeah, and then...
Can I just point out, as breaking news, hang on, let me try it, see if this works still. Okay, I love that. Breaking news, someone's trying a new fruit today. She's only just found out about it.
Anyway, the pear, they will actually ripen in the bowl. That's where they should ripen.
Next to a banana.
Next to a banana. Well, they don't need a banana to ripen, but that's when, if you wanted to eat them fresh, au naturel, that's how you ripen them.
Can I just ask, how the hell did we get onto that?
I asked about, Alex asked about figs.
Figs.
I asked if you could grow figs, and then Julia got her pears out. So if we can drag it back to the script.
Yeah, Elaine.
Meanwhile, back at the quiz.
Yeah, tell us, fabric pots and air pruning, what do you know about them?
Right then, fabric pots. I don't use them because I don't like them and I don't think that they're necessary. So the first thing I would say is that whilst we have an aversion to plastic, there's no problem with reusing plastic. So why not reuse them? Now, when I've used fabric like coir pots, etc., in the past for broad beans, for runner beans, toilet roll holders are exactly the same. Not the toilet roll holder. That's not very good.
what do you mean,
The roll. I think that's on the wall.
That little doll in the very big skirt.
Do you remember them? Everybody had one. Have you still got one?
No,
Oh, okay then.
it's not the 70s.
I think it was earlier than that, Gareth. But so what I find is that the plants that I've planted, such as runner beans, broad beans, I've done sweet peas as well, they get knotted up into the fabric. But the problem is that the fabric won't disintegrate. So you're stunting the growth of the beans, etc., that you're planting. So scrap them all together. If you have used them, fine. But what I would say is, why not just use your little pots instead, the plastic ones, and then just tip them out instead of planting in them.
And
That's
Alex
the
is
first thing.
planting them into containers containers on the patio. And
which is fantastic.
Yeah,
that makes more sense because you're not constraining the growth of the plant then.
Yeah, and the other part of Alix's question about air pruning. Now, air pruning, I think of something that you would do with trees or... What are you laughing at? No.
Is air pruning like air kissing?
No, you daft devil.
It's like an air fryer.
Don't you know what air pruning is?
No, is it like an air fryer?
Oh, we're going to learn something. Come on. Are you sitting down? Come on. Here we go.
For it, Julia.
So you know, like the pots that you can get, and it almost like looks like the hedgehog-like all around the outside. They're all spiky around the outside, and they've got little holes in them. Or if you think about the root trainers that you get for the sweet peas, that is air pruning. So they allow their little bits of air that are coming out of those pockets. Those pockets allow the air in, and what happens is when the roots of a plant hit the air, they actually stop growing. And so what it does is it forces the roots to grow from different parts of the root system. So rather than like, you know, when you get a plant that you bought from the garden centre, for example, you tip it out and the root system is going round and round in circles at the bottom. Well, air pruning stops that happening, and so when the roots reach the side and they reach the air, they stop, but then they send out like smaller, thinner roots on the root system, and it creates a better root system for the plant that you're growing. Now, I think of air pruning as something that is particularly useful for things like sweet peas, if you wanted to do them in root trainers, or if you think about it for a tree. For example, now is the perfect time, and I'm getting bombarded with loads of adverts for these, to be ordering bare-rooted trees.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to get yourself a real bargain, get yourself bare-rooted trees. They come out at this time of year over the winter period. They arrive literally with nothing attached to them. So if you've ordered them or gone to the garden centres, they will turn up with just like almost a
stick.
A stick with just...
Didn't we talk about this with Simon?
Yeah.
So, Alix, go to episode 3 of this season, so you've probably only got about another 30 to get to. And then you'll learn all about bare-rooted trees from Simon the Plantsman.
Right. And in doing that, I think a great way to get those trees established, if you buy bare-rooted, is to plant them in air pots, because that will mean that they're plants, before you set them in the ground, if you were ever going to, that will give them a really good root system. And of course that's the most important part, because that's the internal part of the plant. If you think about it, it's like the heart and the liver and everything else. It's the works of the plant. So
do you prune them?
No, there's no need to prune the roots on that when you're doing air pruning. What you're wanting is your tree to actually, or whatever you're planting, to create a really good root system. And so, like I say, as soon as the roots hit the air, they stop growing at that point, and they'll start to generate new roots. If smaller roots within the kind of pot, if you see what I'm saying. So the roots aren't going to grow outside of the pot because they can't survive in the air. So they carry on producing a thicker root system inside the pot.
So every day is indeed a school day.
Yeah.
There you go.
Probably get lines by 4 o'clock. Anyway, so
that's answered your question, really.
It has, yeah. I mean, as long as it's answered Alix's. I'll tell you what I was going to say was, this next year, Gareth doesn't know this yet, but what we are going to do next season is we're going to grow a lot more plants for containers, and so that people who are listening who have got patios, balconies, etc., will be able to join in quite happily by us growing smaller patio-based plants.
I'm putting my hand up here because last year I actually banned growing things in pots on my plot.
But we've rescinded that plan, don't we?
No, I'm not rescinding that plan. We're going to grow all the plants in pots on Elaine's plot, and she's got to water them.
Yeah. Because that's what I do.
That works.
Well, don't worry, because it's raining right now, so you've got plenty of water. You've got plenty of water, so you'll be fine.
Now and then.
So you'll do that experiment.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Don't worry as well.
Yeah. I am doing that. Well, I thought that it's handy for a lot more, and we've bought loads and loads more seeds, haven't we, of small things.
Container.
Container based. So
have they arrived yet?
Yes.
Some of them.
I've had to hide them. They're in the dining room. He don't listen, so it's okay. But yeah, I've hidden them as well.
I mean, I'm amazed
Big
that I didn't
box of
have
them.
stuff rocking up at my house just so you could cover it in that fashion as well.
Hey, we're not thought of that, have we?
No.
And Gareth's got one of them things that you press the doorbell and the camera comes on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so we'd know them when they've arrived, and then you can bring them every week when we see you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gareth. We'll do that.
Well done.
The Potty Plotters Plotcast with simple recipes for gluts and guts.
Okay, well, you've listed wedding flowers. Are you getting married again? Does he know?
I'm going to say if I did, I'd have to marry him again, really, wouldn't I?
Yeah, well, wedding flowers doing you know.
That's sweet.
Yeah, well, you do.
He doesn't listen, so
No,
he-
don't
No,
matter.
you don't have to say that.
No.
You know, anyway.
Anyway.
Adam Frost.
Oh, yeah, we liked Adam Frost, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think you're
Nick
scared.
Knowles.
Nick Knowles.
was a
Yeah.
man
I think
at
you're
heart,
scared,
wasn't
Adam
he?
Frost,
Yeah.
because he's not taken any calls since.
No.
There's a lot of people that happens to, isn't there?
Yeah, strange old world.
A lot of injunctions as well. But we don't talk about them on there either, do we, Gareth?
No. Wedding flowers.
Wedding flowers. Doing your own. The pitfalls you've put.
Well, I thought that we should talk about it because it's now coming up to the end of September, Julia, and maybe people are going to be getting married next year because that's what people do. And I just think that, again, it's coming back to the internet, that it looks very easy for people to make their own bouquets, sort their own flowers out and grow them for their own weddings, which sounds very wonderful and romantic. The truth of the matter is it's a lot of hard work, and the stress of a wedding is enough. You don't have to do your own flowers. Let florists do it.
Yeah.
But I just thought we could talk about some of the pitfalls that we've had in the past when we've done them for free of charge and we've given them to people for weddings, etc.
I mean, recently we've helped a friend of ours with her daughter's wedding, which was lovely. And I mean, she'd certainly got all of the space to grow what she wanted. She'd got a polytunnel to grow what she wanted. But of course, the one thing that is outside of your control, no matter what you do and how much you spend, is the weather. Now, we had this last year when we were doing the wedding as well, because the season actually took quite a while to get going, and we were starting to panic and thinking, what are we going to do if the flowers aren't ready by August? So we went into plan B mode and started drying flowers. So we'd got alliums and everything drying everywhere. But really, it is the one thing that you can't control, isn't it? The weather.
Yeah, because the thing most people don't think about is that when it actually comes to ordering for a florist, for instance, they bring them in from abroad.
Yeah.
So they're almost guaranteed them. And those that are coming in from this country probably are grown in polytunnels.
Yeah.
Well, we know that you've had a lot of success with growing flowers in polytunnels.
Yes.
It's not like growing outside.
No, it's not. And of course, we have had a mild year this year. If we get a scorcher of a year next year, then that could actually make it equally difficult growing inside the polytunnel as opposed to outside the polytunnel. So, you know, I am lucky that we've got that, but we've already committed ourselves to helping two sets of friends with some wedding flowers next year. So we will be hedging our bets. We'll do some inside, some outside, but still, it is very difficult because you don't know what's going to affect things that you're growing. So I think what we've learned in doing it is if you can be relaxed about what it is you will have in your bouquet or your arrangements, then that takes a bit of the pressure off, doesn't it, Elaine? Why is that?
Well, because you can't guarantee, first of all, whether they're going to be open, whether they've grown enough by the time you're getting married. So regardless, even if we plant early, it could well be that we get late frost, early frost.
Yeah.
We've just got no idea what's going to happen. And I will say that my everlasting sweet peas in the archway that I created is still over on one side. I'll be pulling it back in a short while, but the winds that we had as well just a couple of months ago knocked the whole thing over. So again, it's things like that we had the winds as well as everything else. So just it's okay if you're being relaxed about it, but if not, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, you think it's a very stressful thing to do, and I mean, it certainly was stressful for our friend, and luckily she had got flowers and she'd got plenty of flowers, but we were there as the backup because we said, we'll bring flowers as well to the wedding, and then you've got a range to choose from. But it is quite a responsibility if you are doing it, especially if you're the bride or the bride's mother. It's quite a responsibility. I mean, we felt better when we were kind of one
away
step
from
removed doing it, didn't we? So,
much easier. But another thing is, of course, that's what fashions at the moment across the tables are small bud vases, etc. Well, all I can say is you don't need to go to that expense. What you can do is small jam jars, and they work just as well, and they're just as beautiful. So start collecting them now if you're getting married next year.
Yeah, and one thing you can do is decorate them, isn't it, Elaine? You can decorate those jam jars to make them look jolly.
You're getting the Pritt stick out again.
She always wants the glue.
Oh, and just going back to wedding flowers, one important thing is, I'm going back to last week's episode, get your seeds ready. So if you are going to go down that route, make sure that you're sowing your seeds at the right time, and some things actually need sowing now for next year.
Contact the Potty Plotters anytime on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Potty Plotters, or email naughtycorner@pottyplotters.uk.
Right then, apples.
Yes.
Not had too many of them this year.
No,
I've not, but you've had loads of pears, which we've just been talking about.
Yes.
So I just thought that we ought to talk about how to store them.
Yeah.
So there are lots of apples on site, and as we've already said, it's chucking it down outside. So today a good day to collect them?
No, leave them on the tree now if you can. The ones that have already dropped on the floor, work your way through them, see if there's any that are usable. You can make use of those. You can make use of them for pressing, or actually just cutting the bad bits off. Don't be too particular about them, but there are still plenty on the apple trees, and so you're looking really for a dry day to take them off, aren't you, Elaine?
You are, yeah. And how do you know that an apple's ripe?
Again, as with the pear, when you go to touch them and you can fetch them off, don't be turning and turning and turning. If you have to turn and turn more than one rotation, that apple is not ready to come off that tree yet. So, but if you literally do a half turn of your wrist when you've got it in your hand and it comes off, that apple is ready to come off.
Okay, so when we've got a whole bunch of them and we've got them all, what are we supposed to do with them?
Make them into crumble, make them into pies.
Okay.
What else would you do?
So
with
you'd
them?
cook them down?
Some of them I would take them home, I would cook them, make them into things and freeze them. So we've got lots of crumbles in the fridge in the freezer to keep us going over winter. And cakes, apple cake, beautiful, lovely apple cake.
Yeah, I like apple cake. The other thing is though that what I tend to do is I cook down the apple with the sugar, so that it's all ready to go into a crumble rather than making a crumble, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
That's a good idea.
And that's all ready then, and it's much easier, particularly when we're up here all day. Take one out in the morning and then all that. I actually make the crumble mix, and I keep it in a bag or a container. I always make twice as much as I need, and then I always keep the leftover in the fridge.
That's
so
a good
then
idea.
The following week I've always got that. It's all ready.
Never-ending crumble.
That should be in the top tip section, Elaine.
Oh, can you do that, Gareth?
Why don't we put it in the recipe section? Because
we're doing recipes in a little while.
Well, why don't we move it up the order? Since you've both spoken about cooking apples and doing crumbles and pies, etc. And we're talking about taking stuff off, so we've taken the apples off and we know when they're ripe, and you've given us the recipe for these juicy ripe pears. So what we'd like people to do is get in touch with some recipes, because last season we all did some of our recipes and we spoke about the never-ending Mediterranean veg, and I'm just eyeing up Julia's tomatoes right now, and the peppers.
Yes, the peppers ready in the polyton.
So for the penultimate episode of this season, which will be in a few weeks' time, what we'd like people to do is get in touch with some of their favourite recipes with some of the harvest they've had this season, because we know it's been a difficult season for people, and we'd like to know what you're using your stuff for. So get in touch, email us naughtycorner@pottyplotters.uk. You can send us a message on Facebook or Instagram with your recipes, and we might get you on to talk about what you do with your harvest in the penultimate episode of this season. So if you can leave us your contact details, I'll be in touch in a similar way to what we did National Allotment Week.
Elaine, if you're not going to make them into, if you're not going to turn your apples into a crumble or anything like that, how do you store them to keep them over the winter?
Yeah, well, if you've got any old magazines, particularly glossy magazines, I mean, Mum and Dad used to do it with glossy magazines because I don't know why, but anything like that where it's glossy. But if not, you could always do it with newspaper and literally take the apple and wrap the newspaper round and store. Put the next one to it, but so that it's not touching, and then keep them somewhere cool and dry. Now, if your headquarters, I was going to say, but if the shed is prone to frosts, that it's cold inside, don't do it because it will freeze them.
Right.
So there needs to be somewhere out of the way, if you've got like an old coal house or
your garage or something like that. Well, there's a little bit of heat and but it would just protect them. Oh, and I tell you what you could do locally, something that we've done a couple of years, is we have a cider man who comes to visit the site.
Cider man?
I mean, you could make your own, but we have a man locally who used to come on site, collect any surplus apples and then turn them into cider and give us a portion of them back as cider, which was lovely. So, you know, if you don't want to do it, see whether there's someone locally to do that.
But also you could do that with some of the other leftover fruit as well. So if you think about some of the infusions, there's a word, that they do now for cider, it's not just apple, obviously, that you can have, and you could just make them into homemade cider. Pear cider.
That'd be jolly.
That's called something.
That's Perry, isn't it?
The Plotcast Podcast with the Potty Plotters.
Now, Elaine, I'm quite curious now what you're going to tell me, but you've put down here disasters on the plot. Now what? What disasters have you had?
I think that people do have disasters on the plot, don't they? I mean, look at all this blooming weather. It's absolutely hammering it down there. And I think sometimes it's the fact that they've not thought things through in the right way. So they've put trees in the wrong place, for instance. Sheds that are about to collapse because they've not put them up properly.
Well, we've learnt a lot about groundwork, haven't we?
Yeah. And I just thought it's also about, for instance, the gaps. How many times have we talked about the gaps between raised beds?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's that, because when you've done it, it's too late.
Yeah, you've got to do it all over again then, haven't you?
So that's why I was thinking, you know, we all have disasters, and we do, don't we?
Yeah, what disasters have you had? Come on.
The wind, I would say, hasn't been kind this year. And having pulled down the arch of the everlasting flowers, they're not that everlasting all of a sudden, the sweet peas. So that's been a bit of a pig, really. So I am going to say that Steve, across the way, he actually helped me put one of the archways up not so long ago. And I'm going to ask him if he'll come back and help me put this one back up.
Right.
It was a genius method, and to be quite frank, I can't remember all the details, but it involved a lot of wood.
Did it involve Steve putting it up?
Yeah, he helped me.
Well, Steve's normally got the tools, and if he's not got the piece that he needs, he'll make it. So that's quite useful, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's what I'd say. And we've all had disasters, but like all the time, I keep saying, it's just like buying a new house. If something doesn't work, change it, move it. It doesn't matter. It's an allotment, so go for it. I'm just looking at disasters over there, Julia, because I can see the water gushing down the drain pipe that isn't there. Where's your drain pipe gone?
It's fallen off. It's fallen off, look, so we need to do a bit of repair there, but it is sort of going in the water, but so that's quite...
It's really not from where I am.
Not the grey one,
big
but the other
one.
Anyway,
I just thought I'd talk. That isn't a disaster, but...
well, it could be.
It could have been, and on the side of the tangerinery, of course, we've had some repair, because there was going to be a disaster.
Yeah, so the other side of the tangerinery was basically rotten, and the glass was... fixed in with some wood that had gone very rotten. So
you've had the double glazing man out?
No.
Yeah, well, sort of. We've had a double men out, but not double glazing.
Yeah, we had...
Well, they are now.
Yeah. Kev and Steve, we decided actually the easiest thing to do, because the tangerinery is so big and has got so much glass on it, we didn't need to worry about blocking out too much light. So we've just bordered it up with wood at the other end, and it does a nice job.
It does, yeah. It looks all right.
Yeah.
It just needs painting, but it's made a big difference, and it's kept us safe.
Yeah, because otherwise you were going to well, you could have been on your way to A&E, couldn't you, now? But so that's been repaired. One disaster, although it's not a disaster, but it's a learning curve, is we planted up a perennial bed of flowers on the community plot that we'd been working on. And I planted things that I knew and that I'd grown or I'd bought, and that was quite okay. But then I was given various other plants, which people didn't really know what they were other than cosmos or what was the other thing there was something else I was given, and what has happened there is that they have grown much bigger than I was anticipating them. So when I've planted them in the middle of things, they've dominated and smothered the plants around them. Now they will recover. I do honestly think they'll recover, but that's a lesson in itself. I'm not accepting anything from people unless they actually tell me what it is, because cosmos and whatever is not good enough, because they vary in sizes. And you know, it could have been a disaster in the fact that the perennials I've spent more time and money on, and they could have killed them, really. So that's a bit of a disaster, but it's as long as you learn from your mistakes, I think that's really important. And as you were saying about the raised beds, you know, the amount of places where we've been and seen raised beds where people haven't even given them 12 inches 30 centimetres between them. I mean, I've got tiny feet, but I am clumsy. But I wouldn't be able to get through those beds. I mean, I'd have my foot in the other bed while I'm clearing one, and that's, you know, no way you would do it.
No, and it's the same as the depth of them. You know, it's all right building deep raised beds, but the truth of the matter is you're going to have a fortune's worth of topsoil to fill them or something. So think about it before you start on your adventures. Plan it all instead.
And if you're listening and you've had a disaster, well, why don't you share it with us? Because actually, that might save someone else having the same problem.
A confessional, if you like.
Oh.
You can email us anonymously if you'd like to. We won't laugh. Well, I won't.
Now, Elaine, you've had your garlic out. Are you expecting to encounter any vampires or anything?
No, but it's the end of September, so I just thought I'd remind people that now is the time to actually start it. So here's one that I made earlier, literally. So having been to the supermarket.
Oh, you've had this one from the supermarket. You're not going to buy a proper one then?
Yes, I'm going to do an experiment.
Oh.
And what we're going to do is we're going to compare and contrast. So we've got one here that we've already started piggling with earlier on. And as you can see from the garlic clove, so a garlic bulb is made of garlic. Garlic bulb is made of garlic cloves.
It's grown. It's grown from a clove.
So you don't plant the bulb, you plant the clove.
You do. So by splitting it, Gareth, which is what we've just done, and you can see that they all join together and make the bulb. Then the root is underneath, and then the little pointy bits on the top. Got it?
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah. So each one of these cloves will make a new bulb.
A new bulb.
So Elaine's got probably, 8 or 9 cloves here?
A bit more, I think.
So that should make 8 or 9 bulbs. And so you're just growing this from a shop bought one, aren't you?
I am, this one is, but then I'll also do a horticultural one as well. And the main thing that you've got is you need a really sandy, well-drained bed, because otherwise this won't work.
It's a bit like what we've done for the carrots.
Yes, perfect.
So if you're doing it in a pot, a mix of sand and compost, so about 50-50.
Yeah, and they work really well in pots as well. You can grow them in those. So some people would say, do you need to set them off like we do with other things in cell trays? And I can say, yes, you can if you want. But realistically, if you've got the right place, put them straight in. Now, they need to be set round about 4 to 6 inches apart so that it gives them plenty of room to not only grow, but also if you've got an onion hoe, which I have, I like to be able, because these are going to be in the ground from the end of September right the way through to June, July, and of course they don't encourage weeds, but weeds will grow between them. So you want to be able to hoe in between each of these that are growing. Now, by putting them in at this time of year, it's quite mild still, and they will start to shoot, and so it won't be very long before they start to show you a green shoot at the top. The other thing is with these is you only plant them just beneath the level of the soil. You don't need to plant them deep. And then what happens is with the frost, etc., it's the frost that makes them turn into the bulb. So they've got to have the frost. Next year won't do. You've got to get them in. So all I do is I do them in a line, because that's what I like, my lines, and 6 to 8 inches apart. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, and within a couple of weeks you'll see that they'll start to sprout. But you've got to leave them in a long time, Gareth, so put them somewhere where it doesn't matter.
So do you water them in as well, or do they?
No, we don't need to. No.
So
they don't need a lot of care, actually.
So actually, I could just put them in a pot and forget.
Yeah.
I don't even need to water them when I've put them straight in the pot. So they generate their own.
Yeah.
Well, we're bound to get some rain.
I'm more thinking if I put them if I start them off and put them in the greenhouse over the winter, for example.
You don't need to be in the greenhouse.
You don't need to. You can do, but it means that, which is a good point, if you put them in the greenhouse and you could start them off in pots in the greenhouse, but if you put them in the ground in the greenhouse, which other people will, you'll overlap next year, because these will not be out until they're not at the right time, because your tomatoes will need to go in before these come out. They won't be coming out until June, July.
So if I do them in pots, I could put them, just leave them scattered around the garden. They'll keep the vampires away over Halloween.
Yeah.
But they'll also they'll look after themselves. So in effect, they're like they're like a flower bulb, I suppose, that you might put in at this time of year as well for the spring. That actually you just plant them and forget about them.
Yeah, they're easy to do.
I mean, the thing is, if you're going to plant them in a pot outside, all I would think about is just making sure that perhaps the pot is raised off the ground, and so that if the water, we do get a deluge of water, then it gives it a little bit of room for the drainage underneath the pot. But other than that, they're perfect in pots, aren't they, Elaine? And I'm just going to go back to your little experiment, because I know Jerry behind the plot behind me, he actually saves his clothes, some of his bulbs from the previous year for the next year, so he's always got his own supply of clothes to actually put in. And so what I might do is I might snaffle one of his for you, and you can do that in the experiment as well.
Do the whole lot, and then just see, because what they do is they recommend that you don't use the ones from the supermarket, because of course they're not bred for this particular growing on.
So let's compare for a minute. So that is about 35-40p's worth of garlic, probably a little bit more, depends on the time of year. So it's really, really cheap. How much would you pay for a bulb from the horticultural suppliers?
About £3. £2 or £3 now, Elaine.
So
each? Right, I would have said £3
Oh no, where are you going? Jeez,
I was going up the garden
Wilko don't exist anymore.
No.
Well, I'm telling you, in the garden centre you get
I
two
tell you
for
what,
a
we'll
fiver.
go and have a look, and then next week we'll tell you.
And of course Jerry's will be free.
Well, if you nick one.
The Plotcast podcast with the Potty Plotters.
Well, I think we've exhausted ourselves now. I know I'm thirsty again, so time to put a kettle on, Elaine.
I think so. And Gareth looks knackered because he's not long been off his holidays. He's always on holiday, have you noticed?
Always on holiday.
Just seem to be away a lot.
But,
you think always.
Always.
Let's define always as being once a year.
It's been a long once.
Anyway, well, thank you for listening, and quite appropriately talking about teas, coffees. We are getting ready for a Macmillan coffee morning, and we're going to be cutting some of our flowers. Hopefully the frost won't have damaged them too much, and they will, because they are, especially the dahlias, they're loaded with bulbs at the moment, and it'd be lovely to cut and give them away. And what we do for when we do Macmillan coffee mornings or anything where you're raising funds for, just pop some flowers into a jam jar with a bit of water in and give them to the event, and then most people will happily give you a couple of pounds for your English cut flowers. What are you laughing at now?
Because I think you said earlier that you'd got plenty of bulbs on your flowers. Gareth, you twiddle with that or something.
No,
that's what we do. We get a bit delirious at the end, don't we?
Buds is what I mean. Buds on your flowers. You've got plenty of buds on your flowers.
Yeah, okay then, right. Well, anyway, let's see how we go on with that.
The Plotcast podcast with the Potty Plotters is an Amberland Media production.